On the Georgia coast, there's a small seaside town called Fair Harbor, where time seems to move slower than anywhere else. Wooden piers stretch into a foggy Atlantic horizon. Seagulls cry like distant memories, and old mansions whisper secrets from a century ago. It's here that June Parker, a 32-year-old biographer, arrives with one mission: to write the life story of Maribel Stone, a legendary reclusive heiress who vanished mysteriously in 1974. Maribel was the daughter of a shipping tycoon and one of the last great Southern socialites. Rumors said she'd been a spy, a runaway bride, even a murderer. No one ever knew the truth. June, who'd just been dumped by her fiancé and fired from her New York publishing job, thought uncovering Maribel's life might also help her rediscover her own. But she wasn't the only one chasing Maribel's ghost. Alex Rivers, a rival writer from Chicago, had already claimed rights to a competing biography. He was everything June hated in a man: smug, confident, and infuriatingly charming. Yet when they both discovered they'd been granted access to Maribel's mansion, the Blue House, for the same month, neither was willing to back down. The publisher decided to make it a friendly competition. Whoever produced the better story would get the official contract. June needed the job to rebuild her career. Alex needed it to redeem his reputation after a scandal ruined his last book. And Maribel's forgotten estate became their battlefield. The Blue House stood alone on the cliffs above Fair Harbor's beach. Weathered gray wood, ivy tangled over its balconies, and salt wind sighing through cracked shutters. June arrived first, suitcase in hand, heart racing. She was greeted by Eloise, Maribel's 80-year-old housekeeper, who still lived there. Eloise spoke in riddles about the past. "Miss Maribel didn't disappear," Eloise said, dusting the parlor shelves. "She just went where she was always headed." When Alex arrived later that evening, he parked his car beside June's rental, stepped out in rolled-up sleeves, and grinned. "Guess we're roommates, Parker." June glared. "Only until I find the truth first." They set up separate workspaces, June in the library, Alex in the music room. The first days were tense. They argued over research notes, fought for access to letters, and sabotaged each other's interviews with locals. Yet, as the nights grew longer, the hostility started to soften. Both of them were, after all, alone. Both of them had failed at love. And both were searching for meaning in Maribel's story. A woman who had loved, lost, and vanished. One evening, June discovered a false panel in Maribel's bedroom wall. Inside was a box of letters bound in blue ribbon, written between 1969 and 1974, addressed to someone named E. The letters revealed a secret romance. Maribel had fallen in love with Eleanor, her best friend from college. A love that, in those years, could never exist publicly. Eleanor was an artist, wild and free, and Maribel was expected to marry a wealthy man to maintain her family's name. In one letter, Maribel wrote, "They say our kind of love is invisible, but every time I paint your name in the air, I see the world glow a little brighter." June was stunned. She realized the story wasn't just about a vanished heiress. It was about a forbidden love, erased by time and fear. When Alex found her crying over the letters, she tried to hide them. But he listened quietly, his face softening. "You think she ran away with Eleanor?" he asked. "I think she loved her enough to disappear." From that night, they worked together instead of against each other. They compared notes, followed the trail of Eleanor's art, and visited an old gallery in Savannah where Maribel's last known painting, The Blue House at Dusk, hung like a secret goodbye. Their partnership turned into friendship. Friendship blurred into something more. They'd spend long nights on the porch overlooking the sea, drinking wine, reading Maribel's letters aloud, imagining what her last days were like. June began to feel alive again. Alex, for all his confidence, confessed that he was tired of chasing success. He'd written books about other people's lives but had forgotten how to live his own. June told him about her failed engagement, about the fear of not being enough. He told her that she was the bravest person he'd ever met. One stormy night, when the power went out, they found themselves in the library by candlelight. Lightning flashed through the windows, The air smelled of salt and rain. Alex said quietly, "Maybe the reason Maribel's story never ended is because no one ever let her be who she was." June whispered, "Maybe that's true for all of us." When their lips met, it felt like a promise. Fragile, uncertain, but real. Days later, they made a breakthrough. Eloise finally confessed what had really happened in 1974. Maribel had planned to elope with Eleanor on the night of her engagement party to a rich senator's son. But something went wrong. The car they fled in went off the old coastal bridge during a storm. The police found the wreck, but only Eleanor's body. Maribel's body was never recovered. People assumed she drowned. But Eloise revealed she had come back days later, in secret, bruised but alive. "She begged me not to tell," Eloise whispered. "Said she'd lost everything but her love. Then she disappeared again. I never saw her after that night." June and Alex searched old hospital records, newspaper clippings, and property deeds. Finally, they discovered that a woman named Maribel Stone, living quietly under a false name in New Mexico, had died only 3 years ago. Her handwriting matched Maribel's. She had survived. She had lived the rest of her life in solitude, painting under the desert sun. The revelation broke and healed June at the same time. Maribel's story wasn't one of tragedy, but of survival. A love so deep that she built a new life around its memory. When June and Alex finished writing their joint biography, they decided to call it Great Big Beautiful Life, taken from one of Maribel's letters. "If I can't have a great big beautiful love, then I'll make a great big beautiful life instead." The book became more than just Maribel's story. It was about every person who had ever chosen freedom over fear, truth over comfort, love over expectation. The publisher, stunned by their combined manuscript, offered them a co-author contract. When the book was released, it became a phenomenon, not just for uncovering a mystery, but for giving voice to a forgotten woman who had dared to live her truth. A year later, June returned to the Blue House. The sea breeze was softer now, and the house no longer felt haunted. Alex joined her on the porch, holding a copy of their book. He smiled at her like she was the next great mystery he wanted to spend his life solving. "Do you ever think about what happens after the last page?" he asked. "Every day," she said. "Maybe the next story is ours." As the sun sank over the Atlantic, the light turned the sky to gold. The wind carried the faint scent of magnolias and paint, as if Maribel herself were still there, smiling at the life she inspired others to live. June closed her eyes and whispered to the sea, "You were right, Maribel. Love doesn't vanish. It just changes shape."